July is the month that decides whether your lawn survives the rest of summer or just gives up. Heat stress builds up fast, and a lot of the damage you see in August actually started weeks earlier, when the grass was already struggling and nobody noticed. Most people don't even realize their lawn is in trouble until the brown patches show up, and by then you're playing catch-up instead of just maintaining what you already had. So if your yard's looking a little tired right now, this is the video where we fix that. We're going through 10 specific things you need to handle this month, and none of them require fancy equipment or a weekend course in turf science. Just consistent habits applied at the right time, starting with the one most people get completely backwards. Before we get into it, if you want a complete system for cutting your lawn care costs without sacrificing results, the book linked in the description and pinned in the comments covers everything about the lawn. Our readers are saving an average of $1,000 a year in lawn care costs. Every video here is built around the same goal: spend less and get a better lawn. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Now let's get back to the video. Number 1. Stop mowing as short as you did in May. This is probably the single biggest mistake people make in summer, and it's not even close. Cutting your grass short worked fine in spring when temperatures were mild and the soil had plenty of moisture. July is a different game. When you scalp your lawn during hot weather, you're removing the part of the grass blade that actually shades the soil and keeps roots cool. Cut it too short and you expose bare dirt to direct sun, which dries out the root zone way faster than it should. The fix is simple: raise your mower deck. For most cool season grasses like Kentucky bluegrass or fescue, you want to be cutting at around 3 to 3.5 inches. Warm season grasses like Bermuda or Zoysia can stay a bit shorter, but even those shouldn't be scalped in peak heat. Taller grass means deeper roots, and deeper roots mean your lawn can pull moisture from further down in the soil instead of relying entirely on whatever rain or sprinkler water hits the surface. One more thing on mowing: keep your blade sharp. A dull blade tears the grass instead of cutting it cleanly, and those torn tips turn brown and stressed almost immediately. If your lawn has a slightly grayish or frayed look after mowing, that's usually a dull blade, not a watering problem. Most mower blades need sharpening at least once or twice a season, more if you're cutting a big lawn regularly or you've hit rocks or sticks along the way. A cheap blade sharpening at a hardware store usually costs less than $10 and takes them about a day. Also worth mentioning, the 1/3 rule still applies even in summer. Never cut more than 1/3 of the blade height in a single mow. If your grass got away from you and grew tall while you were on vacation, don't just chop it down to your normal height in one pass. Bring it down gradually over 2 or 3 mows spaced a few days apart. Cutting too much at once shocks the plant and undoes a lot of the benefit you just got from raising your deck height in the first place. Number 2. Water deeply, but way less often than you think. A lot of people water their lawn every single day in July because it feels like the right thing to do when it's hot outside. It's actually one of the worst habits you can have. Light, frequent watering keeps moisture sitting right at the surface, which trains your grass roots to stay shallow. Shallow roots mean a lawn that can't handle even a few days without water, so you end up trapped in this cycle where you have to keep watering constantly just to keep it alive. Instead, water deeply 2 or 3 times a week. You're aiming for about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water total per week, including any rain. The best way to check is to stick a screwdriver into the soil after watering. If it goes in easily 6 inches deep, you've watered enough. If it stops at 2 inches, you need more time on that zone. Timing matters too. Early morning, somewhere between 5 and 9 a.m., is the best window. The water has time to soak in before the heat of the day evaporates it, and the grass blades dry off before evening, which cuts down on fungal problems. Watering at night sounds convenient, but it leaves the grass wet for hours in the dark, and that's exactly the kind of environment fungus loves. If you're running an automatic sprinkler system, check that it's actually set up for this kind of deep, infrequent schedule. A lot of default settings on irrigation controllers are built around short daily cycles, which is the opposite of what you want in July. You may need to manually adjust the runtime per zone to get closer to that 1.5 inch target, and that's going to look different depending on your sprinkler type. Rotary heads usually need longer runtimes than spray heads to deliver the same amount of water, so don't assume every zone needs the identical schedule. Number 3. Watch for drought stress before it turns into real damage. Grass actually tells you when it's struggling. Most people just don't know what to look for. The first sign is usually a dull, slightly blue-gray tint instead of the normal green. After that, you'll notice footprints staying visible in the lawn for longer than usual. Normally, grass springs back within a minute or two after you walk on it. When it's drought stressed, Those footprints can stick around for 10, 15 minutes or more. If you catch it at this stage, you're fine. A deep watering session usually brings the grass right back within a day or two. The problem is when people ignore these signs for a week or two straight. At that point, the grass goes dormant to protect itself, turning brown, and while dormant grass isn't necessarily dead, pushing it past dormancy into actual death is a real risk during a long heat wave. So walk your lawn every few days in July. Look at the color, check how fast it bounces back from footprints, and adjust your watering schedule before the damage piles up instead of after. It only takes a minute or two, and it's a lot easier to catch a problem in its early stage than to bring back a lawn that's already gone fully brown and crispy. It also helps to know which parts of your yard tend to stress out first. South-facing slopes, areas near pavement that reflect extra heat, and spots under trees competing for water usually show drought stress before the rest of the lawn does. If you know your trouble spots from past summers, check those areas specifically instead of just glancing at the whole yard from your porch and assuming everything's fine because the front section still looks green. Number 4. Hold off on heavy nitrogen fertilizer. This one surprises people because spring and fall are when everyone talks about fertilizing, so it feels natural to keep doing it through summer too. But pushing a lawn to grow fast with high nitrogen fertilizer during peak heat actually adds stress instead of helping. The grass has to put energy into producing new leaf growth at exactly the moment it should be focused on just surviving the heat and conserving water. If your lawn really needs a boost in July, go with a light application of a slow-release fertilizer, or better yet, switch to something with more potassium and less nitrogen. Potassium actually helps grass handle heat and drought stress better, so it's doing the opposite job of nitrogen during summer. Save your big nitrogen feeding for early fall when the grass is naturally gearing up for root growth again. And if you're not sure what your lawn currently has in the soil, a basic soil test costs almost nothing and tells you exactly what nutrients you're missing instead of guessing. A lot of garden centers and university extension offices offer these for under $20, and you usually get results back within a week or two. It's also worth pointing out that fertilizer burn is a real risk in July specifically because of the heat. Even a fertilizer that would be perfectly safe in April can scorch your lawn in summer if you apply it during a dry stretch or right before a hot afternoon. Always water your lawn lightly before applying any fertilizer, and water it in again afterward to help the granules dissolve and reach the soil instead of sitting on top of dry grass blades where they can cause burn marks. Number 5. Deal with weeds now while they're easy to spot. July heat actually works in your favor here in one specific way. Weeds like crabgrass and dandelions are usually fully grown and obvious by midsummer, which makes them much easier to identify and target compared to spring when everything's still small and green. For broadleaf weeds like dandelions and clover, spot treating with a targeted herbicide works better than blanket spraying the whole lawn, especially in summer heat, since some herbicides can stress your actual grass if applied too heavily during hot weather. Always check the product label for temperature restrictions. A lot of weed killers specifically say not to apply above 85 or 90 degrees, because the chemical can volatilize and damage nearby plants, including your grass. If you're dealing with crabgrass specifically, understand that by July it's often too late for pre-emergent control, since that needs to go down in early spring before the seeds germinate. At this point, your best bet is pulling it by hand if it's a small patch, or using a post-emergent crabgrass killer if it's spread further than that. One thing people forget is that a thick, healthy lawn is itself one of the best weed prevention tools you have. Weeds thrive in thin or bare spots where they don't have to compete with grass for sunlight and nutrients. So while you're spot treating the weeds you can already see, it's also worth thinking about why those bare patches opened up in the first place, whether that's mowing too short, watering issues, or just heavy foot traffic in one specific area. Fixing the underlying cause matters as much as killing the weeds you can see right now. Number 6. Check your lawn for grub damage. This is the one most homeowners completely miss until it's a real problem. Grubs are the larvae of beetles like Japanese beetles, and they live just under the surface of your soil, eating grass roots from below. The damage looks a lot like drought stress at first, irregular brown patches, but here's the test that tells the difference. Try to lift up a section of the brown grass. If it pulls up easily like a loose carpet because the roots are gone, you're probably dealing with grubs, not dry soil. Another telltale sign is animals digging up your lawn. Raccoons, skunks, and birds love eating grubs, so if you're seeing torn up patches that look like something's been digging at night, check underneath for the grubs themselves. They're small, white, and curled into a C shape. If you confirm grubs, July is actually a decent window to treat, since the larvae are smaller and easier to kill compared to later in the season when they've grown bigger. Products with imidacloprid or other grub-specific insecticides work well. Just water them in after application so the product reaches the soil where the grubs actually live. A simple way to check how widespread the problem is before you buy a bunch of treatment is to cut a 1-foot square section of grass in a suspicious area, peel it back like a piece of carpet, and count how many grubs you find. Anywhere from 5 to 10 grubs per square foot is usually considered the threshold where treatment makes sense. Less than that, and your lawn can probably tolerate it without much visible damage, since a healthy lawn has roots strong enough to handle a small grub population without you ever noticing. Number 7. Aerate if your soil feels compacted. July isn't the ideal time to aerate cool season grass. That's usually better in early fall, but if your soil is so compacted that water just runs off instead of soaking in, you might need to deal with it now rather than waiting. Compacted soil happens from heavy foot traffic, kids playing in the same spots, or just years of mowing the same patterns. The quick test is sticking a screwdriver into the soil. If it's tough to push in even a few inches, that's compaction. Compacted soil makes it nearly impossible for water and nutrients to reach the roots, which means everything else you're doing this month, the watering, the fertilizing, isn't working as well as it should. If your lawn is warm season grass like Bermuda or Zoysia, summer is actually a fine time to aerate since these grasses are in their active growing season right now and recover quickly. For cool season lawns, a light aeration in July won't hurt. Just know you'll get better results doing a deeper pass in September when the grass isn't fighting heat stress at the same time. You don't necessarily need to rent a big core aerator if the compaction is only in a couple of small areas. A manual aerating tool, basically a fork with hollow tines, can handle a small patch without much effort. For a full yard with widespread compaction though, renting a gas-powered core aerator for an afternoon is usually worth the cost, since it pulls actual plugs of soil out of the ground instead of just poking holes, which makes a much bigger difference for loosening up the root zone. Number 8. Adjust your watering and mowing schedule around heat waves. When a heat wave hits, and most regions get at least one stretch of really brutal days in July, your normal routine needs to change temporarily. Don't mow during the hottest part of the day if you can avoid it. Cutting grass when it's already stressed from heat adds another layer of stress right on top, and the grass has less ability to recover. During a heat wave, it's also fine to bump up your watering frequency slightly, but keep the depth the same. You're not trying to water more shallowly, you're just maybe moving from twice a week to 3 times a week, if the heat is extreme and prolonged. Pay attention to your specific grass type too. Warm season grasses generally handle heat waves much better than cool season grasses, so if you've got fescue or bluegrass, expect to see more visible stress during extended heat compared to a neighbor with Bermuda grass. It also helps to hold off on any kind of lawn treatment, fertilizer, herbicide, or even aggressive dethatching during the worst of a heat wave. The grass is already using all its energy just trying to survive the temperature, and piling on another stressor at the same time tends to do more harm than good. Wait for a break in the heat, even just a day or two of slightly cooler temps, before tackling anything beyond basic mowing and watering. Number 9. Check your sprinkler coverage for dry spots. This sounds basic, but it's one of the most common reasons people end up with patchy lawns in July. Sprinkler heads get knocked out of alignment, clogged with debris, or just don't cover the way you assumed they did when the system was installed. Run your sprinklers during the day at least once this month and actually watch where the water lands. Look for spots that are getting overspray onto the sidewalk, areas that seem to be getting barely any water, or heads that aren't popping up all the way. If you've got an in-ground system, this is also a good time to check your controller settings, since a lot of people set their watering schedule once and never touch it again, even as temperatures climb through the summer. What worked in May is almost never enough in late July. For anyone without an irrigation system, just walk your hose and sprinkler setup around to different zones and time how long it actually takes to get good coverage. Most people underestimate this badly and end up watering for 10 minutes when their lawn really needs 30 or more to get a proper deep soak. A trick that helps with this is the tuna can test. Set out a few empty cans, tuna cans, cat food cans, anything roughly straight-sided in different spots across your lawn while the sprinkler is running. Time how long it takes to collect about an inch of water in each can. That tells you exactly how long you need to run your sprinkler in that specific area to hit your weekly watering target, instead of just guessing based on how long it feels like you've been standing there holding a hose. Number 10. Hold off on overseeding bare patches until early fall. It's tempting to throw grass seed down on bare or thin patches the second you notice them, but July is genuinely one of the worst times to do this for most cool season lawns. New grass seedlings need consistent moisture and moderate temperatures to germinate well, and summer heat just works against both of those things. You'll likely end up wasting seed and money. What you can do in July is prep the area so it's ready for fall seeding. Loosen up compacted soil in the bare spot, remove any dead grass or debris, and if it's a small patch, lightly water it through summer so the soil doesn't completely dry out and harden before September rolls around. Mark the spot somehow, a small stake, or even just remembering the location, so you're not searching for it later. If you've got warm season grass like Bermuda, the rules flip a bit, since summer is actually their peak growing window. Overseeding warm season grass in July can work. Just make sure you're matching the seed to your existing grass type. For cool season lawns specifically, try to be patient here even if the bare spot is bugging you every time you walk past it. Seeding too early just wastes money and sets you up for disappointment when nothing germinates properly. Early fall, usually somewhere in late August through September depending on your region, gives you warm soil for fast germination combined with cooler air temperatures that won't stress the new seedlings. That combination is genuinely hard to beat, and it's the same reason most lawn professionals consider fall the real prime season for any kind of seeding project, not spring like a lot of people assume. Thank you for watching and do not forget to subscribe.